Welcome to this year's annual conference by the Notaries of Europe. My name is Frédéric Simon, I'm the editor of Euractiv.com, and I will be your host for today's event, which is taking place both physically here in Brussels and online. This year's annual conference takes place in a special context because of the COVID crisis, of course, which continues to act as an accelerator of change in our society when it comes to digitalization, but also because of the Conference on the Future of Europe, which is the theme of this year's edition. The Conference on the Future of Europe is an initiative from the European institutions which offers citizens the possibility to debate and decide on the priorities that they believe the EU should be addressing in the coming years. And you, the notaries, have a special role to play in this, because you deliver some of the basic legal acts that form part of our daily lives. Notaries are indeed an essential link between European citizens and their public administrations. So what can be the contribution of notaries to the Conference on the Future of Europe? What achievements have been made in recent years? And what solutions can notaries bring to future challenges like the digitalization of justice? To debate these topics today, we will divide our day in two sessions. The first in the morning, focusing on future perspectives and the notaries' proposals for the future of Europe, and a second session in the afternoon focusing on digital justice, where we will hear about recent achievements in digitalization from the Notaries of Europe and the latest initiatives on the matter coming from the European Commission. But before we dive into these topics, I have the pleasure of welcoming online today Mrs. Věra JOUROVA, the European Commission Vice President in charge of Values and Transparency, who has kindly accepted to give us a keynote speech. Mrs. JOUROVA, thanks very much for joining us today. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Dear notaries, good morning. I want, first of all, thank you for having invited me to this event. It is a pleasure to be here today. I have always valued our cooperation, which goes back a long way, including in my previous role as Commissioner for Justice. And also, I want to thank you for your constructive proposals for discussion at the Conference of the Future of Europe. Many of the contributions are very interesting, such as, for instance, the idea to create an European information portal. And I am very happy to see that you are actively involved in this debate. Without getting into details on process, please allow me to say that there are no predetermined outcomes of the conference. The results depend on the input received through the platform and the discussions in the panels and the plenary. The more ambitious and sustainable the ideas are, the more the outcome of the conference will be alike. One dominant theme emerging through the platform and the discussions held so far is in the panels and the plenary of the conference is the rule of law. Improving the protection of the rule of law in the EU as an important topic for European citizens. Recent Eurobarometer surveys also show us that our citizens see democracy, human rights, and the rule of law as the Union's most important assets. Respect for the rule of law is also crucial for the functioning of our Union. The application of EU law relies also on national courts. It is therefore essential for mutual trust and judicial cooperation between member states and for the proper functioning of our internal market. A rule of law problem in one member state is a problem for all other member states and for the EU as a whole. Unfortunately, over the past years, we have seen rule of law concerns emerging in certain member states. Faced with these challenges, the Commission has gradually developed the EU Rule of Law Toolbox with a view to better address emerging challenges. The deterioration of the situation of the rule of law in Poland led the Commission to initiate the procedure under Article 7 on the treaty in December 2017. And in September 2018, the European Parliament decided to do the same for Hungary. Both Article 7 proceedings are still ongoing before the Council. The Commission has also used its power as the guardian of the treaties to launch infringement proceedings against member states in situations where judicial independence was affected. Also, over recent years, national courts made more and more use of the possibility they have to ask the European Court of Justice for preliminary rulings in specific cases that are pending before them. This has contributed to the growing case law on judicial independence. A more recent tool introduced is the regulation on a general regime of conditionality applying from the 1st of January this year. For the first time, the Union has had a specific instrument to protect its budget and its financial interests from breaches to the rule of law. It was designed to address situations where breaches of the principles of the rule of law risk having a nefarious impact on the sound implementation of the EU budget. Under the regulation, the Commission can propose measures such as, for instance, suspension and termination of payments, as well as prohibition of new legal commitments and financial corrections. The Commission applies the conditionality regulation from its entry into force and is actively looking at all available sources of information to identify cases that would be relevant under the regulation. In recent years, the Commission has also deployed other instruments to protect the rule of law in the Union, including measures under the European semester, the annual cycle for aligning economic and fiscal policies in the Union. And in this context, the Commission has made several country-specific recommendations on justice reforms in member states, which were subsequently adopted by the Council. Member states are expected to address these recommendations in their national recovery and resilience plans. These plans set out the reforms and investments they wish to implement when spending funds from the EU's €670 billion recovery and resilience funding. Finally, a key tool we developed is the annual Rule of Law report. The Rule of Law report stands at the very center of the Commission's work on the rule of law and aims to protect the rule of law in a preventive manner and to promote its principles and good practices. The first report was adopted in September 2020, the second one in July this year. In the report, the Commission provides its own qualitative assessment of both general trends in the EU and the specific situation in all 27 member states as regards the rule of law. The report presents both positive and negative developments, drawing attention to emerging or deepening challenges and highlighting good practices. The report looks at 4 key areas of the rule of law. The first is the independence, quality, and efficiency of justice system. The second one, anti-corruption framework. The third topic or key area is media pluralism and media freedom. And the fourth one is other institutional checks and balances. The 2021 edition also examined how the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has affected the national systems of checks and balances. Let me briefly outline some key findings from this year's report. On justice systems, we can see that in a number of member states, steps have been or are being taken to strengthen judicial independence. For example, in a couple of member states, the establishment of councils for judiciary is a very good sign. However, the influence of the executive and legislative branch over the functioning of national justice systems has increased in some member states. Safeguards are being lowered. In a few member states, there are serious structural problems. Anti-corruption strategies have been adopted or revised in a number of member states, but such strategies are not an objective in themselves. It is important that these strategies are implemented and lead to results, which are essential to preserve citizens' trust in public institutions. Challenges relating to investigations, prosecutions, and the application of sanctions also remain in a number of member states. Major or highly complex corruption cases continue to emerge in various states. In some, however, concerns about the effectiveness of the repression of high-level corruption unfortunately continue. As regards the state of the media freedom and pluralism, regarding national media regulators, we see that not all media regulators are free from political influence and effective enough. Another concern is that many journalists remain subject to threats and attacks, in particular when investigating crime and corruption. Lastly, with regards to institutional checks and balances, we report on positive development regarding the increasing oversight by parliaments, courts, and independent authorities over the emergency measures adopted in the context of the COVID pandemic. However, there are also worrying trends. Civil society, to give just one example, is being challenged in some member states, be it from deliberate threats from the authorities, inadequate protection against physical or verbal attacks, or an inadequate level of protection of fundamental rights guaranteeing their work. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, the report is a preventive mechanism. It is a mechanism that fosters dialogue and mutual trust. It aims to detect problems and to prevent their deepening. At European level, the Council presidencies have started a good tradition of dialogue on the basis of the Rule of Law report in the General Affairs Council, with a horizontal discussion and a country-specific discussion Rule of Law development in member states. At national level, engagement with parliaments and stakeholders is particularly important for the Commission. I have myself presented the first annual report in many national parliaments and will continue this together with Commissioner Reynders also for the second annual report. Of course, stakeholders, including legal professionals such as notaries, can and should bring valuable contributions to the debate. All this improves our and the general public's knowledge of what is happening in the member states. That is also crucial for making the best possible use of the other tools in our Rule of Law Toolbox. And as President von der Leyen announced during the State of the Union speech, as of 2022, the annual reports will include concrete recommendations to member states. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy and the rule of law cannot be taken for granted. They need to be nurtured and protected. Legal professions such as yours play a fundamental role in ensuring the protection of fundamental rights and the strengthening of the rule of law. An effective justice system requires that all legal professionals freely pursue their activities in implementing individual rights. You, in particular, as notaries, represent a strong legal profession that citizens need in their everyday life, getting married, buying property, solving a range of important legal matters. You are the face of justice to the citizens. Legal professionals are also key actors when it comes to important pieces of EU legislation, such as procedural rights, the functioning of the European arrest warrant, e-evidence, and digitalization of justice. I started my speech by thanking you for your continuous and excellent cooperation. Indeed, we have cooperated in the past, for example, on projects for training of notaries, on new EU legislation and cross-border rules, on digitalization of company law, or on succession certificates. And we need to continue our cooperation with determination to strengthen the rule of law in face of the challenges it faces today, including by modernizing our justice systems so that they are more effective and more accessible to citizens. I trust that we will do so and count on your engagement in ensuring EU citizens' rights and facilitating their daily life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these opening remarks and for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you a very pleasant rest of the day indeed.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
So Mrs. Jourova's speech is in fact a very good introduction to our opening session, which is coming next. This opening session is titled "The Future is in Your Hands," and it will feature a series of presentations from the notaries as well as senior EU politicians focusing on the future challenges and opportunities facing the profession. So let me start by inviting our first speaker to take the floor, and that is Ádám, the President of the Notaries of Europe, who is joining us physically here in Brussels. Thank you very much for joining us today. Ádám, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Vice President JOUROVA, dear Presidents, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the CNUE, I'm pleased to welcome you to our annual conference organized in the framework of the conference on the future of Europe. First, I would like to thank Vice President Jourova for her intervention on the strengthening of the rule of law in the European Union. This theme is more topical than ever, and I believe it is a challenge in the view of the profound changes that our societies and economies are undergoing. Indeed, the question of the rule of law is deeply linked to the digital transition we are experiencing. The COVID crisis has put a strain on the judicial systems of the member states. At the height of the crisis, several states had to suspend court activities and or limit the access to public services. This was undermining the functioning of judicial systems in Europe, means undermining the rule of law. In this slump, the notaries of Europe have taken action to ensure that their activities, recognized as an essential service of general interest by their supervisory authorities, could continue throughout Europe. New procedures were tested and proposed. However, they were based on a solid foundation that had been in place for several years. The creation and interconnection of registers, the dematerialization of data transfer, setting up companies online, the deployment of e-signatures, electronic authentic instruments, video conferencing, and others. In this difficult context, let me quote my colleague and president of the Italian Notariate, Valentina Rubertelli. "The notary is like a vaccine. She or he has helped prevent the judicial system from collapsing." Civil law notaries are a vital component of the EU judicial systems and therefore of the rule of law. They are pillars of the continental legal system widely shared in Europe, which is based on a public service of proof and advice accessible to all. Notaries, women and men, of the contract and of preventive justice are at the heart of an essential mission to surround their fellow citizens with the legal certainty necessary for a peaceful life in society. Sustainable economic and social development requires a stable and predictable legal framework. It ensures that the rights of natural and legal persons are respected and that enterprises can operate in the market while being protected from arbitrary interest, political interference, or artificial distortion. The guarantee of private property is one of these fundamental rights, the condition for the adhesion to the European Union, a constituent right of the welfare of citizens in European democracies and the essential basis for economic relations in a market economy. The activity of the notary in 22 civil law member states is largely focused on securing private property, preventing disputes and ensuring harmonious and legitimate transfer of property in accordance with the rights of citizens, even across generations. The health and resilience of the European economic and social model depends on the guarantee of legal certainty. The legitimate public interest for societies and the European Union's objective of economic and social development depend on legal certainty. Legal certainty is in itself a European public interest and should be an objective of the European Union alongside the other values that found the European area of justice, freedom, and security. The importance of the legal certainty on which the Romano-Germanic legal model is based is at the heart of the proposals we are making at the Conference on the Future of Europe. These proposals will be presented and discussed today in the first panel of our conference. They reflect the experiences on the ground of Europe's 45,000 notaries and their 200,000 employees. The issue of digital transition will be addressed during the afternoon session. On this occasion, we will present digital tools implemented by the European notariates. Of course, we will also discuss the legislative package presented on the 1st of December by the European Commission, in particular, the legislative proposal for a regulation on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal cases. The CNUE welcomes this publication and the proposals that are put forward. The need for justice practitioners to deepen the transition towards digitalization is primordial and was even more acute during the COVID-19 crisis. The European Commission intends to make digital technology the default option in cross-border judicial cooperation. This is an objective to which we fully subscribe. The European Commission also underlines the role of e-Codex as the main tool for secure cooperation in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal proceedings. We have seen supporting the implementation of e-Codex since its creation in 2010, and we will continue to work on its development. In many countries, communication between notaries and judicial authorities is now conducted in a dematerialized manner. This is the case, for example, for consultation and registration in public register kept by notaries or by the state. Thanks to the European network of registers of wills association, the registers of wills kept by the notarial profession are even interconnected at the European level and enable citizens to find out whether lost wills and testamentary dispositions concerning them are registered in another country. This is also the case for setting up companies online, as required by the European directive. In this respect, the European notariates are working together with the Ministries of Justice on innovative solutions. This afternoon, the Belgian notariate will present its model for the online creation of companies. Facilitating cross-border cooperation between notaries by digital means is also a necessity. This is why we have set up European Notary Network, the ENN. The ENN assists notaries in the handling of cross-border cases by offering a series of practical and information tools via a secure platform. Today, almost 2,000 European notaries are registered on this online platform. This result would not have been possible without the constant support of the European Commission, which I would like to thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, in Europe, the law is based on the principle of preventive justice and effective regulation of economic operators. In 22 member states, notaries have been guaranteeing legality for several centuries and have always been able to adapt to societal changes. The notary's function is about authenticity, truth, security, and the preservation of data on which the trust of states and our fellow citizens is based. At a time when forgery, fake information, falsified data, money laundering, and cybercrime are on the increase, these truth and security are more than even essential for society and the rule of law. Thank you again for your participation, and I hope at the end of this day we will be more rich, more together to build together the future of Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. TOTH, for this opening speech and for being with us physically here in Brussels. Joining us online now is the Chief of Cabinet of Mrs. Dubravka Šuica, the Vice President of the European Commission in charge of democracy and demography, Mr. Colin Scicluna. Mr. Scicluna, thanks for joining us today. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I'd like to convey the apologies of Vice President Šuica for not being able to join, but it is a pleasure for me as myself being a member of the legal profession to join this event. So the role of notaries as guarantors of rule of law, and especially this very particular role that notaries have in society across Europe, gives a very special, I think, flavor to this event and the reflection on the future of Europe and the future of your own profession. Since the beginning of this mandate, we have been working very hard together with Vice President Šuica on trying to bring citizen empowerment and engagement into the heart of policymaking at the European level. And in fact, the Conference on the Future of Europe is perhaps one of the broadest and boldest examples of such an exercise, because it is a process that adds to create value to policy making, and it reinforces our representative democracy and the rule of law in Europe. So the conference aims, however, to bring this reflection to the broadest possible audience, outside of Brussels, outside of capital cities, to the population of Europe across the entire continent. And to enable us to do this, we have created a unique and first pan-European public space, which is our multilingual digital platform. This is a platform which can be accessed from everywhere, naturally, and where interaction can take place in all of the European Union's official languages. In this rapidly evolving world, which is characterized by the digital and the green transition, which is also underpinned by a very significant demographic transition, of course, our democracy must evolve. And it's our aspiration that the conference will help to create in Europe a democracy that is fit for the future. It is innovative, and as I said, it is unequaled, especially because there is the commitment of the three main institutions, the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the Council, to not only listen to citizens, but to debate with citizens and also to follow up on what the citizens are proposing in the context of the conference. So this digital platform has already seen a great deal of activity and a number of proposals, including a number which are of particular relevance to your profession. As Vice President JOUROVA mentioned, the rule of law is one of the topics, one of the clusters that has attracted the greatest level of interest. And therefore, we would also be very happy and looking forward to receive the proposals that will be coming from yourselves, from this event, and any others that you might be proposing. So far, since it was launched in April, the platform has already had over 4 million individual users. There have been 4,300 conference-related events which have been registered on the platform, which saw the participation of 270,000 citizens. These have resulted in over 11,000 ideas. These ideas are now being fed into the citizens panels. These are 4 panels of 200 people each, so 800 European citizens have been selected at random, 4 different clusters of topics, and they are debating the ideas that have been proposed on the citizens on the multilingual digital platform. In turn, these panels will feed a series of recommendations into the conference plenary. The panels are meeting at the moment. We've had one session in Strasbourg in the early autumn. We had a second session online, and we are now trying to keep as much as possible to the calendar that we had set ourselves to have the final sessions, which will take place in person. But of course, we need to take into account the evolving COVID situation, which is having an impact on the calendar. The conference plenary that I mentioned is itself also a unique setup, because for the first time ever, we have citizens, representatives from who are participating on a par with elected representatives from the European, the national, the regional and local level, together with social partners and civil society. These plenaries will then propose a number of proposals on the basis of the recommendations coming from the panels, which will be presented in a report to the 3 presidents. We hope that this report can be presented by the spring of next year, because of course it is very important that we move on to the next phase, and the next phase will be the implementation of these proposals. As mentioned, the 3 presidents have made a commitment to listen and to follow up, and that means that we need the time to be able to implement these proposals within the mandate of the current European Commission and the mandate of and the term of the current European Parliament. Nevertheless, we're also looking at ways to continue this process afterwards. So, for instance, these citizens panels and the multilingual digital platform, we would like to keep these resources continuing. We would like to be able to find ways to embed this participative and deliberative process into the decision making at the European level. And an important outcome of the conference will itself be a proposal on how we can actually continue to do this. So I will obviously encourage yourselves through this your organization, but also through your networks at the national level, to promote the conference, to promote the platform, to organize events, and to input ideas, because these will be valuable not only in terms of this phase of the process, but also as we continue taking this deliberative process forward into the future. On behalf of Vice President Šuica, I thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share these reflections with you. Thank you.
I was saying thanks, Mr. Scicluna, for explaining how the conference works and what are the next steps in the coming months. Coming up next now with a video message is Mrs. Roberta METSOLA, the Vice President of the European Parliament for the European People's Party. In her video address, Mrs. METSOLA kindly accepted to answer 2 questions. The first question we asked was about the Conference on the Future of Europe, what it's all about, and how to make the EU work better for European citizens.
Good morning, Vice President Šuica, State Secretary DOVŽAN, President TOTH, Mr. Simon. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by thanking Notaire d'Europe and the Maltese Notarial Council for inviting me to this important exchange. This session is being held at an opportune time, with the Conference on the Future of Europe gaining momentum all around Europe and our continent. The aim of this conference is simple: to shape our common future, to leave the European project better than what we found it in. In this process, we must be honest about Europe, honest about our failings and the frustrations of our processes, but also honest about our successes, because yes, we have had quite a few. The citizens-led pan-European democratic exercise is the first of its kind. The Commission, as I am sure Vice President Šuica will elaborate on, launched a multilingual digital platform back in May, where everyone can share their ideas on the future of Europe in one of 9 thematic clusters, or even a 10th cluster, which allows for other ideas. Citizens can also organize events, such as the ones we are taking part in today, in order to reflect on what Europe is and where it could go. Contributions can also be given in the national and European citizens' panels. These citizens' panels consist of 4 panels of 200 European citizens from the 27 member states. They reflect the EU's diversity, geographic origin, gender, age, socio-economic background and level of education in order to make sure that this process is an honest and inclusive one. The input from the citizens then feeds into the conference plenary, which includes representatives from 3 EU institutions, that is the European Parliament, the Council, the Commission, as well as representatives from the Committee of the Regions, the Economic and Social Committee, national parliaments, regional and local authorities, social partners, civil society, and of course, European citizens themselves. What is unique and important about all this is that it has a bottom-up approach. The conference develops from the input given by citizens because indeed citizens are at the heart of Europe. We are emerging into a time of opportunity in order to rebuild and recommit. We are facing serious and different challenges from those we faced before. We need to come together like never before. And for this reason, I would urge everyone to engage within this process and help shape our common future, one where the European Union works for all. For this question.
Thank you. That was the first question that we asked Mrs. METSOLA. We then asked Mr. METSOLA a second question, and that is, what can be the contribution of the notaries to the Conference on the Future of Europe?
Thank you for this question. I believe that the European Union's internal market has been one of our greatest achievements, and its deepening is our best asset in times of increasing globalization. Nevertheless, I understand that in doing so, we must take a balanced approach. I understand that for the notarial profession, it creates a lot of red tape and confusion. Having said this, being one of the oldest branches of the legal profession, I admire your resilience and ability to adapt throughout the years. And more than this, I admire your commitment to the construction of a legal Europe and to the European project as a whole. The CNUE has been set up precisely to engage with the European Union by promoting the notariate and its active contribution to any decision-making processes of the European institutions. It does this in some of the most crucial areas: citizenships, entrepreneurialism, access to justice, and consumer protection. And so I ask you that in this next phase, the phase wherein we collectively shape the future of Europe, to continue engaging with us as you have done in the past. We know that you engage with citizens on some of the most important milestones in their lives, and so we rely heavily on your expertise and insights. Discussions like these are how we policymakers are able to understand the difficulties which professionals like yourselves face every day. This exchange is crucial for us because in this next phase, we will make sure that the European Union will leave nobody behind.
Thanks, Mrs. METSOLA, for sending us this video address. Next up now is Mr. Gašper, the Slovenian State Secretary for European Affairs, who has kindly accepted to send us a video address as well. Let's hear now what Mr. Dovžan has to say.
Of the Council of the Notaries of the European Union, Mr. Ádám, TOTH, President of the CNUE Chamber of Notaries, Mr. Bojan Podgoršek, members of the Council of Notaries, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to welcome you here today and to say a few words before you start your debate on the topic of the Conference on the Future of Europe. I am pleased to see the Council of Notaries of the EU actively engaged in the debate on the future of Europe. Your contribution to the reflection on how to make Europe more citizens-friendly is greatly appreciated. Your extensive experience in working directly with citizens every day helps you understand their interests, but also their challenges. I'm convinced that your valuable experience will guide you when making useful suggestions on what else could be done to make their life easier and better. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware of the numerous common challenges facing the global community, and Europe is no exception. We are going through the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences. We focus on mitigating and adapting to climate change. We are working towards a green transition and digital economy and towards an open strategic autonomy in key areas. We are witnessing negative demographic trends. All of these topics are in the special focus of the Slovenian presidency of the Council of the EU. Ensuring the resilience of the EU has been one of its most important tasks, and in November the Council adopted very good conclusions on this subject. We are very pleased with this achievement. In this context, we need a comprehensive debate on our common future. We are happy to know that the Conference on the Future of Europe includes a broad debate on what the EU should be like in the future. Slovenia sees the conference as an innovative project, putting European citizens in the spotlight. This is a process which, in itself, is already a positive result. After having set up the conference's quite complex organizational structure, we can now fully dedicate ourselves to the content. However, COVID resurgence required some adjustments to our work. It may be also necessary to carry out some of the events in a hybrid form. Nevertheless, we are pleased to see that the activities continue despite the difficult epidemiological situation. All 4 European citizens panels have started their work. Citizens actively participated for the first time in the October plenary meeting on the conference. Representatives of the Western Balkans were also present as key stakeholders. This is particularly important for Slovenia as we share the responsibility for the future of Europe. I believe that the decision to invite our partners from the region was correct, conveying an EU message on the region's geostrategic importance. We will continue to invite interested key stakeholders whenever possible and keep the debate as broad and as open as possible. The Slovenian presidency of the Council of the European Union has set the conference on the future of Europe as one of its priorities. As co-chair of the executive board of the conference, I will continue with the efforts to ensure a frank and inclusive citizen-centered debate. The conference has already made some progress, but it has also met with some criticism. Despite the extensive communication activities of all 3 project co-organizers, the Council, the Commission and the European Parliament, as well as at the national level, the visibility of the conference still remains below our expectations. As a result, citizens' activity on the multilingual digital platform remains limited and does not fully reflect the diversity of the Union. I would like to call on all those who can to join the efforts for raising citizens' awareness of the importance of the debate about our common future, to publish information on the conference on their websites, and to inform about the conference in the communication with different stakeholders, to encourage their members to organize events and publish proposals on the multilingual digital platform. Let me welcome the initiative presented by the Council of the Notaries of the EU to dedicate its annual conference to the Conference on the Future of Europe and to make concrete proposals. I understand that these proposals will cover the areas of the rule of law, values, digitalization and legal certainty. Some critical remarks were also heard after the second plenary meeting of the conference, mostly about the need for improvements in the functioning of the plenary meeting itself. The co-chairs of the executive board of the conference have listened to the citizens, and the next plenary meeting will be even more interactive and dynamic. In cooperation with the European Commission and the European Parliament, the Council will continue to work towards the final success of the conference. The main objective of Slovenia during its presidency of the Council of the EU is to make sure that citizens' interests are the heart of the conference and that their voice is heard. We would also like to make the conference as inclusive as possible, open to dialogue with various stakeholders and allowing different opinions to be heard. We believe that only a sincere debate based on historical experience leads to a strengthened European Union, a union in which the values of constitutional democracy, European identity and individual national identities are protected and can continue to prosper. Our aim is to strengthen a common understanding of the challenges that the member states can face only together at the EU level, and also of issues that are easier for countries to tackle independently and therefore need to have adequate autonomy within the EU. To this end, Slovenia organized a series of debates, especially the Bled Strategic Forum. The event brought together almost 200 top panelists from the political, economic, science and technology and civil society spheres, as well as young leaders in early September this year. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference is not yet completed. It is too soon to predict or envision the results. The conference mandate provides for the submission of a final report to the President of the three main institutions. These will examine how they can take effective action based on the report, each within the scope of their respective competences and in accordance with the treaties. We hope that the final recommendations will reflect a series of ambitious improvements that the three institutions will make sure that meaningful and legitimate proposals are implemented. Let me assure you on behalf of the Council that we will work towards an open, inclusive and transparent conference. Its work should continue to focus on topics and policies that are in the interest of the citizens. After the numerous crises, we must also use the opportunities provided by the conference to enhance the EU's capacity to respond to unforeseen events. This will make the European Union better prepared for the future. I wish you a successful discussion. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks very much to Mr. DOVŽAN and to the other speakers, in fact, this morning who joined for the opening session. We're a bit ahead of time, so maybe we can take a 5-minute break before convening again in a few minutes for the first panel. So we'll take a short 5-minute break now. Please bear with us.